Good day. Welcome to another edition of Ebima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. Before I continue, I urge you to please press the like button. And if you're new to my show, I also urge you to subscribe. There's almost a certainty, a very high probability. You would almost say that it's an inevitability that Russia is going to attack a European country soon. It seems quite certain that Russia will soon be attacking a European country. So the question I want to ask is, which European country do you think Russia will start to launch a campaign, an expanded campaign against Europe? There's been an unrelenting attack on Russia, propaganda, and then the support of Ukraine. It has gotten quite a lot of Russians talking. Now we hear strident voices from people like Sergei Karaganov saying that the Russians should take decisive action to remind Europe that they have deterrent power. After all, they control 5,800 nuclear warheads. That's what we know. At every given time, 1,600 of those nuclear warheads are patent ready, primed to be unleashed on any country. But the Europeans have forgotten. They don't know that anymore. They are supporting the Ukrainians in such a way and manner that it's almost like, and it seems not like, it seems very certain that they are now very much a part of this war. Ukrainian drones are overflying Baltic states, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland. The Germans have put up a lot of money. They have increased their budget, their military budget. The Britons have increased their military budget. But that's not it. They're now building drones for the Ukrainians in Denmark, in Norway, in Sweden. The Poles have repeatedly supported the Ukrainians, giving them planes. They've emptied out their old Soviet stock, tanks, T-72 tanks. They've all been emptied out to the Ukrainians. The Czech to have done the same. The Europeans are all in this war. The contribution of Europe is quite significant. They have NATO instructors in Ukraine. They have the British vowed to support Ukraine as long as it takes. So the question I ask, when that inevitability finally happens, which country will be the first that the Russians will strike decisively? Because all of these countries now are very much involved in the building of drones, missiles, missile components for the Ukrainians. That is not to talk about their big contributions to the military-industrial complex of Ukraine in many ways than one. The Russians have had it. Putin has started to say a lot of things that make you believe that now is the time that they are going to do something decisive. Intelligence has started to show that, in fact, something is about to happen. The Americans have intelligence. We know that. They can hack into even the telephone of Putin if they have to. It's not to be taken lightly. And the Americans are warning that the European state is about to be struck by the Russians. This war is going to expand. We are very much at the threshold of World War III, if we're not already there. So the question I get asked again, if you have a list of European countries, which would you think the Russians will be starting off with to make an example of? Because that's what Karaganov and all those in the intelligentsia and even in the political class are saying the Russians should do. Send Oreshnik to Germany, maybe to London, maybe to Tallinn, or even Helsinki. It does seem like the visitation of the Oreshnik will be going, according to the Americans, to Poland. Poland seems to have been the first country that will be having this visitation by the very angry, very, very angry Russian missiles. Let me delve straight into my X feed so we can get a better reading of what I've lined up today. This year is the story that I'm starting with, and this is a story that was reported in the Telegraph. The Telegraph is British. The Telegraph is one of the big British institutions, propaganda machines, as potent, as powerful as any quiver you can find in the arrow of NATO. Any arrow you can find, forgive me, in the quiver of NATO, forgive me for putting it the reverse. But indeed, we know that the British media establishment is potent. They have the BBC, they have the Financial Times, they have the Daily Mirror, they have a whole array of media establishment that spew hatred against the Russians. The Russians call it Russophobia. But I know in the court of the British media, the Russians are guilty any day. So this is the story we have here. Russia is planning an attack on Poland to test NATO's resolve, US warns. Critical infrastructure could be targeted by missiles and drones, with soldiers potentially crossing the border from Kaliningrad or Belarus. The US has warned Poland that Russia is preparing an armed provocation in the upcoming months. Washington has warned Warsaw that Russia is planning armed provocation and that it could be carried out within a few months. This was reported by the Telegraph, citing its own sources. Details: Poland has received warning from the US several times, according to unnet source close to President Nawrocki, the Polish ambassador to a NATO country, and a source in the Polish Ministry of Defense, that the Russian provocation in one of the Baltic states of Poland poses a serious threat. It's quite a surprise to hear that it is Poland that will be the first that may be struck. Or is just the Russians? Are the Russians trying to do some form of subterfuge? In warfare, there's a lot of subterfuge. There's a lot of sleight of hand. There's a lot of faking of your maneuver. But this indeed should be sending a lot of fear within the Polish ranks. And this is coming at a time that Poland is actually having some serious problems with the Ukrainians, because at so fortuitous a time for the Russians, the Poles have decided, the Ukrainians have decided that they will celebrate heroes who were complicit in the massacre of a lot of Poles during World War II, and a lot of Jews and a lot of Soviets. Well, we'll be watching and we'll see what action will be taken. But this is it. It's a big news that is trending everywhere now. And it says Russia is preparing a large-scale military provocation that could take against Poland in one of the Baltic states. The US warned Poland that Russia Federation is preparing. And so we'll be seeing the role of Russian tanks. This image of tanks in modern warfare is one that we have seen debunked completely now in the war going on in Russia and in Ukraine, because this particular weapon system is very vulnerable. We've seen how $500 drones can just take out this, and we're not seeing them now in this war theater. But this obviously are made with the imagination of Brock. But I think this particular weapon system, what we know now is drones. What we know now, it's all those drones that have such capacity that are very frightening. Russia is planning, the Telegraph put this image here that Russia is planning this strike, and it's ongoing. Everywhere the Russians are now being said that they are about to do that. And indeed, the Russians do have a reason to be angry with the Poles. Recently, Poland seized one of Russia's embassies, and Medvedev put out this statement a few weeks ago, where he said Poland has decided to go to court to take the building of Russia's former consulate in Gdansk from Moscow, apparently as a counterweight of stripping the Bandera boys of their Polish honor. It's no use talking to the Polish freeloaders about the immunity of diplomatic property. So let me remind those shameless squatters about something else instead. The Polish president's current residence was built with Russian imperial money. Yes, you heard that right. It was Russian money. Thus, it would make sense for Russia to think about filing a suit to reclaim the palace from its illegal possessions. Well, but he did make some commendations about the Poles, though. In a very more recent tweet, he said, no matter how Russophobic the Polish elites may be, one has to admit that on the issue of the Kiev vile Banderites come data. is very free with his language, I must say. A very colorful language. They have taken the correct and honest stance, unlike other European countries and brainless Brussels. I wonder what their position will be if, say, instead of a family crypt, the Doge's body were reinterred in the Roman Pantheon, and the grandiose monument to Hitler were erected in Berlin. Or is that about to happen? So quite a lot of reverse in history is happening in Europe here now. Then they are celebrating the heroes, or they just turned a blind eye, or maybe it may just have something to do with the very fact that the people who are now controlling the European Union are the same people who pushed the aggression against the Soviet state and their Germans. So they will not mind the celebration of Nazi collaborators. And this is one of the things that is beginning to cause a lot of problems and worry about most of what's happening in Europe there now. The possibility that there may be a nuclear conflagration. Lithuania is now removing from its constitution that removes its constitutional ban on keeping nuclear weapons in its territory. It wants to have nuclear weapons. It too has started to feel the heat. It's one of the Baltic countries that the Russians may make an example of, according to the Americans. Lithuania moves to lift nuclear weapons ban, following the lead of Finland. Finland had already done that. So we see now that Politico is reporting, the whole of the media establishment are reporting these changes that is happening now in the Baltic countries. But one other major change too is also happening. We shouldn't forget also, like I said, Finland also is also among that suite of countries that are doing that. It even prompted a response from Medvedev. But this is what is happening. Germany and Ukraine are to return middle-aged men to Ukraine. Why is that so? The Europeans want all of those many refugees who are now in their country. They want them to go back to Ukraine and continue the fight. The Putin has always said that the Europeans are so disingenuous. They want the Ukrainians to fight to the very last Ukrainian. Now that the Ukrainians are very short of manpower and they're losing territory in Kramatorsk, they're losing Konstantinovka and in Sloviansk, what has happened? Europeans are now helping the Ukrainians to round up able-bodied men from 23 to 65 to go join the campaign against the Russians. Ukrainian ambassador to Germany, Mekiv, told Ukreform that two countries discussed mechanism to make men return to Ukraine. At the end of May, 356,000 Ukrainian men aged between 18 and 65 who escaped mobilization live in Germany. And I must add that many of them don't work. Many of them are under the benefit system of the Germans, to the extent now that the AfD is using that as one of their campaigning points, that many Ukrainians are receiving benefit as much as the Germans, and that should stop. That's what's gaining them a lot of popularity. But the war continues, and how is it continuing? Russia keeps crippling Ukraine's energy grid. It's unending. It's unrelenting. This is what we're seeing here now. There's a lot of explosions everywhere across Ukraine. Their tanks are being damaged. Petrol stations are being damaged. It's not an easy thing, and even bridges are being attacked and damaged. So 25 petrol stations are numbered eastern Ukraine cities, including Berislav, Shoka, and Kherson, a gas distribution station near Paniotino in eastern Ukraine's Zaporizhia region, a logistics center in Ukraine's army on the outskirts of Zaporizhia, railway infrastructure. It's just continuing. They have decided that they're going to, and this is a visual of one of the attacks. Kiev, Ukraine, after strikes by the Russian MOD, we remember how the Russians attacked Kiev, and this visual here is one of the damages caused by the attack. A truck was struggling to salvage the truck. These logistics centers are now being hammered, battered, and destroyed all across Ukraine, especially those within the battlefield front. Sumy, Dnipropetrovsk, and Kherson and Kharkiv, all of them are now being attacked relentlessly because they are complicit in the drones. According to the Russians, they are the means by which the Ukrainians transport their drones. One thing though that came off of this last attack, that one that the mayor of Kiev called a very massive attack, the most massive attack according to his adjective. German wonder weapon Skynex air defense system failed to bring down Russian guaranteed drones. We saw now that the relentless appeal of President Zelensky that they should get Patriot missiles. It doesn't seem to have faith with European systems. And this is the reason why Rare Metal's flagship Skynex system proved largely useless against Russian guaranteed drones. The German media has reported, citing internal Ukrainian military documents. Two Skynex batteries with 35mm guns were supposed to protect key industry sites in Western Ukraine. They failed woefully. They have not been doing so well. And one of the reasons they may be failing is this new technology that has been reported by the Telegraph. Russia's new jet-powered drone outpaces Ukrainian interceptors. It was flying. We saw it. We have an image of it where it was flying on its way, very focused on where it was going to do destruction. Russia has begun massively deployed jet-powered UAVs with Chinese engine, which are faster than Ukrainian interceptors and drones, according to the Telegraph. The new Russian drones powered by Chinese turbojet engines reached the speed of 500 kilometers per hour, compared with approximately 300 kilometers for the Ukrainian interceptor drones. They just had no chance, and we saw those drones doing very well. But today is a day that the Ukrainians are celebrating, of all people, air defense people. Zelensky is the day of anti-aircraft missiles, and today is honoring them. These are Patriot missile batteries. It's honoring them for their very good action in defending Ukraine. And it should, because without their action, the whole of Kiev would have been completely destroyed. There was quite a lot of interception of some of the missiles that were sent yesterday. The day of anti-aircraft missile forces of the air forces and armed forces of Ukraine, the warriors who day and night protect our people, cities, and critical infrastructure from Russian attacks. It is the anti-aircraft missile forces that are the main deterrent against Russian aircraft intruding into our airspace. Well, the Russians, they don't have to use their aircraft. What they do is that they lob their planes, their missiles very far off. And we even got about one very long-range destruction of a particular Su-25 by a Russian MiG, Su-34 recently. It covered a distance of almost 200 kilometers. That was one of the longest kills. And we see something, though. The Ukrainians have been successful, while the Russians actually achieved quite a spectacular success in Kiev. They, too, have been carrying on their own successes, attacking. Ukrainian mid-range drones carried out a large-scale attack on energy infrastructure against Crimea. Crimea is just the unfortunate part of Russia that is being pummeled. They are very close to, just across the sea from the Black Sea. So, and besides, the Ukrainians have, let's just say they have a historical, they are very determined to make the Russians have an uneasy time in Crimea. So they attacked this substation in Crimea, and they also attacked Belgorod. Ukrainian forces carried out a HIMARS missile strike on Russia's Belgorod this morning, hitting power stations. So they too are giving it as much as they can. We can see the power station burning here. The Ukrainians are by no means out of the fight. It's just on a scale. That is just the problem. The scale is on a 1 to 10. The Russians have such huge capacity. But for the Russians, we know they have quite a lot they're putting in reserve. Even this attack by drones there now is giving them the know-how, the ability to be able to prepare for such a time when this war will be a Europe-wide war. The Russians, though, not gave us a reading of all their attacks over the night. During the night, Russia air defenses intercepted and destroyed 155 Ukrainian fixed-wing drones. The drones were intercepted in the city of Tver, Tula, Smolensk, Kologa, Belgorod. So the Ukrainians used 155 drones. The drone attack by the Ukrainian military caused a fire at an industrial facility in Smolensk. And then in Belgorod, the surrounding district came under missile attack. So the Ukrainians are very much in the fight. Nobody should doubt that. Even though it is not what you would call a fair fight, even though the Ukrainians continue to plead and appeal and are doing every single thing to bring the larger body of NATO into the war, They're losing territory. The West groupings, this is in Kupiansk, and this is from Riba. The West groupings continue to advance in Kupiansk direction. Russian forces have seized additional territories on the bridgehead east of the Oskol River. This is Kupiansk. We see them. They are moving in Kupiansk, and then changes on the map in the last 24 hours. Advances in Lopan, liberation of Piskonovka, advances in Nova. It just continues and continues. The details of it, for those who would want to know, then they expand their. Russian forces have launched repeated deep infiltration strikes into the Propilia in Donetsk, reaching the area around the city mines, and then, of course, the Propilia is on the way to Sloviansk. They are just moving slowly and slowly, but surely they are getting to Sloviansk, and they will soon get to Kramatorsk. I want to end this session of the Ukraine war with a little bit of some statistical Russia has handed over 20,354 bodies of Ukrainian soldiers to Kiev over the past year, while the Ukrainians have returned 627 fallen Russian troops. The Russian ambassador at large said, that's the real casualty ratio neither Kiev nor Brussels want to talk about. Rodon Miroslav is trying to debunk reports. Recent reports came out that 2 million people have died in this war, and that the majority of those 2 million people were actually Russians. And we really don't know the figures, but there's a lot of images of cemeteries in Ukraine, a lot of images of grieving in Ukraine. And even now we see that some of the most critical voices against this war are now former members of the Zelensky administration, particularly Yulia Mendel, who says that there's a horror. And she's now blaming it on the Europeans who are pushing and egging on the Ukrainians to continue this war. It's an unending war. Well, let's go on to the war in Iran now, and the one that was fought between the Americans and the Iranians. Well, this man was a victim of it. On the very early salvos of the war, he was killed, and that is Ayatollah Khomeini. But now they're doing a funeral for him. All the countries of the world, there are over 100 countries are sending representatives. Ironically, as we got to learn, it's only one part of this world that is not sending representatives, and that is the Western Europe. And this is a report about the funeral that is going on now for Khomeini.
The body of the former supreme leader of Iran is at display in Tehran's Grand Mosalla Mosque. The public ceremonies is going to start tomorrow on Saturday, but today, groups of foreign dignitaries are paying their respects toward the body of the slain supreme leader. Dignitaries from more than 100 countries are in Tehran. Some of them will arrive later in the day, and already groups of them are paying their respects. Dignitaries are from countries like China, Russia, regional countries, Asian countries, and from Africa and Latin America. No dignitary from Europe has been invited. Iran says that any country that openly or even implicitly supported the US-Israeli war on Iran has not been invited to these ceremonies. Millions of people are expected to take part in the public ceremonies that start tomorrow and Saturday, and the processions continue until 9th of July, and they will be culminated as Khamenei's body will be laid to rest at Imam Reza's.
The significant number there is 100. 100 people, dignitaries are already there, and already we're seeing them. We have images of them arriving. We see them all over Iran, going down to the funeral place then, and showing their respect to the imam. This one funeral ceremonies. Religious leaders began arriving in Tehran. We see all of this, but this year are the images of the leaders as they arrive. Quite a lot of them. Images of the coffin carrying the Mata Ayatollah Khomeini, and this is one of the delegations here. And watch any foreign delegation and dignitaries pay to the Ayatollah. So the dignitaries have just been arriving repeatedly from many countries. We have from Pakistan, we have from Kyrgyzstan, we have from all the countries around. Like they said, it's 100 countries there. And then they have also top leadership of Iran's IRGC have also been attending the event. Some of the leaders of the IRGC that we had never seen before have been sighted moving around in the event there now. And they're paying a lot of honor to Ayatollah. It will be a very big one. We're going to possibly see. And this image here shows us all the other members of his family who were killed. The new Ayatollah, his son, his wife was killed. The wife of his son was killed, and the grandchild was killed. So some family members were also killed, and they're all out there now. But many, many dignitaries have arrived all over. They've all been visited. So in this footage here, we have Indian delegation, Hezbollah delegation, Yemen delegation, and Pakistani delegation. They've all arrived. There will also be a delegation from Afghanistan. But like you said, most of the delegation from 100 countries does not include Western Europe. They were very much complicit in the attack against the Iranians as the Iranians saw it. And representatives from more than 100 countries arrived Tehran to pay homage. India, China, Chinese have the parliamentarian leading their ranks, and then Medvedev will be the one leading the Russian rank. Already we saw some Russian Shias already too, so the leadership of the Shia community. Pakistani delegation by the Prime Minister Shahbaz, this is him here now. We can see Munir, we can see the Field Marshal also in that particular delegation there. A lot of respect to Ayatollah Khomeini. These pictures will not be viewed very kindly in Israel. They will not be viewed very well by President Trump. This is not what he intended to do, but this is the reason why the Iranians are who they are. They celebrate martyrdom. Ayatollah Khomeini was always asked, and he always said that he was never afraid to be killed, and he was never afraid to be a martyr. In fact, he aspired to be a martyr, and he has finally gotten what he wanted. He was sent out in a very spectacular way. And the Iranians are going to do a very big one. They will top that 10 million people who were in Tehran to send off the first Ayatollah, that is the first Ayatollah Khomeini. They will be there, but the estimated number of people who will be in this particular one will be 30-something million. So the troops, the delegations are going. This year is the delegation military leadership. They are just continuing more and more delegations. This is the Tajik Uzbekistan delegation. And then this year is a giant show of defiance put in the city of Tehran there. And it's just ongoing. They'll continue celebrating him all through the day. One interesting thing, though, is that even Armenia, the president of Armenia, was also in this particular ceremony. First of all, he met with the Iranian president as he's expanding his relationship. So it's a major diplomatic win for the Iranians. The Iranians are remembering their martyr, the one who stood defiantly. The one who always said that before the Americans, he prepared the Iranian state for this war that eventually happened, and it may have been the reason why the Iranians were much more prepared and gave the Americans a surprise that they never expected. They were prepared because of the way they had their ballistic missiles. And one thing too is that they're saying that after the burial, they're going to have their revenge someday. Army commander-in-chief, with a stronger will, we declare the enemies of Iran nation that we will avenge the blood of the martyr Imam and other matters one of these days. This is not to be taken lightly. Like they say, some people have a very long memory. I want to end on a note of peace. We remember this Russian couple here, Antonia Nikolaev and Ivan Bekov. They went to court today. They're the ones who sent out this image, went up the and where these two very big, well-known daredevils, they have a Netflix series, a Netflix show that made them world famous. They put out this flag about world peace. And they appeared in court today. They went to court, and when they appeared in court, they were granted some leave. But something spectacular happened. They were granted leave in the court, and something spectacular happened. And what was that? The reporters begged and appealed for them to have a kiss and show their love to the world. They continue to say that they believe in love. They continue to say that they want the world to heal. And they gave the world this particular one moment that has turned sort of like viral all over the world now, and everybody has been talking about it. They were given bail though, because they didn't plead guilty. But this year now is the iconic image of that particular scene we just saw. Angela Nicolo and Ivan Bekus, the couple who climbed the top of the Empire State Building, kissed in the Brooklyn Bridge City Hall, and after their arraignment in New York. But the internet had a response, and the internet also gave us another image that I want to end with on a lighter note. This is President Trump.
Chopper 4 live over Manhattan. A heavy-set, senile old man in a dirty diaper has climbed to the top of the Empire State Building. Wait a minute. Is that our president?
Well, one thing is sure, though. The people who do these things on the internet, some of them won't make heaven. Anyway, this is where I'll end my video for now. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. If you have any views regarding the opinions I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. The key question I ask is, which country do you think Russia will choose to be the first country to make an example for? Put it in the comment section. Do well to like and share. If you're new to my channel, subscribe, and don't forget to hype. Until my next show, you have a good day.